Hi everyone, it's Jan again. I got some new tricks for you today and some really cool things that you can do really quickly, but they're absolutely gorgeous techniques. At the store we were able to have the trunk show of a company called Eye of the Beholder is the company name, which I'm sure you can find, and they got all kinds of quilt designs. Look at the quilt behind me. And I'm going to show you this technique. Now, isn't that thing just about the most gorgeous quilt you ever saw? But yet the way that the designer has designed it makes it so easy that it looks like a lot harder than what it actually is. So that's my kind of sewing. To cut every tiny little piece out is a lot of work. To do it this way, I'm going to show you how. It'll only take 10 minutes. And I'm going to show you how to do it, and I'm going to show you some tricks on how to sew it. So to get you inspired first, take a look at this simple project as a pillow. And this is one of their patterns that they have. It's called a rose. And look how gorgeous that is to be able to do it. Now, would you ever think that that would be a simple thing? But actually what they've done is cut out the darker red and put another red underneath the whole piece. And then I'm going to teach you some little tricks on how to sew it together. You can do it however you want to. Some people are crazy enough to do it by hand. Of course, that's a 4-letter word to me, forgive me, but that's the way it is. So I will do everything by machine that I can do, but that's just who I am. Now I want to show you this one. This is one of their Christmas ones, but isn't that thing absolutely gorgeous? And it's done a little bit of free motion involved to give it a little bit of texture. Whether you do that or not, or if you just make the wreath, which isn't re-quilted. If you look at this, they haven't quilted in here. They have out here, but they haven't quilted every place. So you can do it however you want to that makes it fun for you. One of the things that's really exciting is this, it's called Christmas wrapping. And it's a book that they have to offer. And again, this is from Margaret Brewster and Nan Baker. And this design here is a whole bunch of holiday, it doesn't have to be holidays, just simple projects that are all done in one and all the patterns are involved. It's a fabulous book, offers a ton of cool stuff and not a lot of money. So this is something you might want to get into if you really start enjoying it. It's probably got about 10 projects in it. So reverse applique, paper piecing, all sorts of stuff. The Eye of the Beholder here is the Midnight Explosion. And you can find these under www.eobquiltdesigns.com. Okay? So this one just is this. The colors are gorgeous, but the technique is really special. In the Christmas one, they even have an advent calendar. How cool is that? So something fun and something you could teach the youngsters how to do, as well as maybe just make life a little bit easier on you and try a new technique. So let me go over it. It's not going to take very many steps. It's about 4 steps to be able to do, but yet the work comes out awesome. So the first thing we have to do is to get our design. So our design is what I've done is just drew it out on a sheet of paper. You get these papers with the machine. What I'm using is a product called Soft Fuse. Now, in our day, Wonder Under or Steam-A-Seam is what Soft Fuse was. Okay, but that stuff makes it real hard and stiff. So if you put it on a quilt, it isn't soft and comfy. If you use Soft Fuse for all your applique work now, a world of difference. Not really much more money, but oh boy, how heavenly it is. So there's nothing I would use but Soft Fuse. So what I do is I have the pattern paper that's going to come with the design, and I'm going to lay this on here, and I just did a couple of them ahead of time for you. Now that, of course, I can't line them back up because I didn't pay attention. Okay, so I'm just taking my marker, and all I'm doing is drawing around that design on the unfusible side of this paper. Get it? Unfusible side. So there's a paper backing. Then I'm going to take that and I'm going to cut that out. So I get to my next step, that I'm going to iron that paper right onto my blank sheet of paper, blank sheet of fabric. Hold on here, let me find everything. I got it in steps already made for you. So my next thing I'm going to do is to take my paper, as you can see here, and I'm going to use my iron to iron it down. That is just gluing my paper to my fabric. And this ends up being the top part of your pillow. Let's just call this a pillow, okay? Now what I have to do is I have to now, I think you can see better here, I'm going to cut on the inside of each one of those designs. And then I'm just going to iron this piece of paper, which has got the designs on it. I'm going to take my next piece and put underneath it. Now can you see that the green flower will come up? Let's go over a few things I used. Number one, this is a wool mat. If you haven't found one of these, get it for Christmas or something. Put it on your list. These are the greatest things they've made for ironing and for fusing, because it keeps the heat in it so that it's kind of bouncing back up and make sure your fusible stays where it is. So it's a really wonderful little toy for you to have that you'll use all the time. So all I did was trace it, cut it out, ironed it on to the back of my fabric, right? Now all I have to do is to peel off the paper part. The rest of it will stick, and I can usually just kind of rip it a little bit and it will come right off. The paper will come right off and the glue will stay on to my fabric. But just rip it on a corner, because otherwise it's really hard to get with your fingernail. But if you rip it, see, now this has got the glue on it, so all I'm doing at this point is laying it down on my fabric that I want to come through and ironing it down. So what I've done, and you're better off pressing, not ironing, okay? Boom, boom, boom. Okay, now at this point, this is a single piece of fabric and everything else has got doubled on the other side. Hope you can see through that to know what I'm doing. So it lets you put this applique on very, very easily. Again, if you would have cut out each one of those pieces, you would have had a mess. It would have been hard. You would have never kept them lined up properly, because we started from here and ended from here. How easy. Okay, I hope you're with me so far. So now I'm going to go to the sewing machine. And all I have to do, you could put this all together and sew all your pieces together and put your batting underneath if you wanted to. And then you would sew from your batting, your top, your batting, your backing, and sew through it all if you wanted to do it that way. Or we can do it square by square and just create our applique piece and then piece our pieces together and then start adding the backing. So whichever way you want to do it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show you on my Baby Lock Aria, I'm going to show you a little trick, and I want you to see something. You're going to have to see what stitches on your machine we want to do. Now most of you have a blanket stitch or should have a blanket stitch. And some machines got a true blanket stitch like Grandma used to make. Some of them got ones that aren't as precision. Do the best you can do. You're going to be happy with what you have. So if I'm stitching around something, I'm going to stitch around this. Let's just show the stitch off. That's what I want you to see. I'm going to do a blanket stitch. And this is called a pin stitch. Now how are you going to get that pin stitch on your machine? Do you see what I'm looking for? I want a straight stitch on this edge. And then I want it to reach over. No more than 1/8 of an inch, so that it doesn't, basically it'll look like it's done by hand. It's really, really, really a pretty stitch. Do the best you can. Every machine has got different stitches. I'll do another one just to show you. You might have a wider stitch like this. Now you say, well, what's the difference? Difference is how much money you spend on your sewing machine. So let me show you. I'm going to cut my threads, and it's going to lift my presser foot for me. Now, can you see these two differences? This is a blanket stitch, this is a pin stitch. This is one stitching around here, reach over, stitch two, reach over, stitch two, reach over. This one doubles up on the edges and reaches over. It does not matter which one you use. If you have the pin stitch, use it. If you don't have the pin stitch, then do the best you can. So that's where you want to do. So just use whatever stitch you chose to go around the design. On this little sampler we were just showing, we did a variety of stitches. This one we left as a raw edge applique. This one we did as a stretch stitch. This one we did as an applique stitch that showed, and here we were playing around with a zigzag. You can't go wrong. But this is called a reverse applique because you're not appliquing. Normally the applique is glued on top, and here we're doing it from underneath. Okay, now let's talk sewing machines. I always want you to use all the features of your machine. So every machine varies a little bit. I have a machine that I push a button and my presser foot goes down and my presser foot goes up. I also have where the needle will go down and the needle will go up. I hope you have a needle up, needle down, because that will make pivoting a whole lot easier with needle up, needle down. So let's show you just needle up, needle down, and then we'll go on to the advanced features. So if you're sewing and I have to stop, I want to stop in a straight stitch part, and then I can pivot my material a little bit to keep going around my edge. But see how I'm able to stop? Now I don't want to stop there because that's on the zigzag part. I want to stop here. But do you see now I can turn my fabric to the right? I'm using my needle up and down to be able to let me curve. Let's cut that off and show you. I did my curve. You can't tell the difference of where I did a curve, but I put it with my needle down on the straight stitch part, not on the zigzag part. I hope you understand that. If anything you get out of this video and you go to your machine and you try this a little bit, I have taught you something that you'll use over and over and over again. So many of you have fun stitches on your machine. They could be 20 years old and not have stitches like this. And some of you don't use them. And that's what these videos are all for, is for you to be able to get to learn your machine and learn everything you can. Now on my particular machine, and to show you how much nicer it can be out here, what we can do is I can go over here and I can program my presser foot every time I stop to lift up. And that's called a rover method, a rover. So what's going to happen is, watch my needle now, I'm stitching around, and everything time I look at my presser foot lift up. So I told it, I don't want to do that, I want to go one more. So I can pivot my material and go wherever I want to go. I'm still going to make sure that it's in the down position. The needle's in the down position, which I can program my needle to always end down or always end up. I'm doing a little bit more, and I'm going to now cut my threads, and my presser foot will lift up all by myself. Now I'm hands-free. My hands are watching here. But do you see how I was able to turn and curve and do all of that? My presser foot lift up on my own. So if you don't have that, you're just going to put the needle in the down position. You're going to lift up your presser foot, adjust where you want to go, put the needle, and then start going again. So just as you see, some of these fancier sewing machines aren't just fancier sewing, they're easier techniques. So one of the things I want to do around here is I want to start right on that edge, and I want to reach over. And I'm using a white thread on purpose so it shows up better on film. And I've got an open toe foot here with my walking foot. Now my walking foot has got a belt on it, so it really pulls through those fabrics when you're doing a couple different layers on it. I'm lucky enough that I can use my walking feet with my fancy feet, meaning my open toe foot, my walking foot, and my hovering method all at the same time. What I'm trying to encourage you to do is use what you have. If You have an open toe foot. Get it out. You can see what you're doing a whole lot easier than when all that metal is there. If you don't have an open toe foot, go buy one. But if you have a walking foot, you might be able to combine an open toe foot. So find out, check it out, and find out what you are. Because some of these little tools are just so much easier for you, it's unbelievable. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to just make sure that I'm stitching in the down position, and I'm going to pivot just how I said I wanted to. All right, so now I'm going to go along. I'm going to slow it down because I have a speed control on here. I'm stitching and reaching over. I'm stitching and reaching over. Stitching and reaching over. Now, if I go again, I'm going to go crooked. I'm not going to stay on my edge. So I need to see how this hovered, lifted up on me. Now I can keep on going. So sometimes a speed control is something you might really have forgotten you have on your machine. So I'm not just going slow on my foot control. I don't have to go slow on my foot control because I got a lead foot. I'm using my speed on my sewing machine, and my lever's right here. So check to see if you have a speed control, because look how precisioned I'm able to go around this, and you're going to see what my goal is that when the needle reaches over, so you can see it reaching over right now. Come again, it's reaching over right now. Now I'm going to stop and I'm going to pivot a little bit, see? But my presser foot lift up. What I'm trying to do is go around my applique, and I'm trying to make sure that each one of these zags of the applique is the same distance apart. And by doing it where you're lifting the presser foot up, you can do that, and you can come around and be absolutely perfect. So I'm just going to zip around here real quick just to show you, so you make sure you see. And I could have done a satin stitch, which is another whole ball game that I'll have to do at another video for you, is how to do perfect corners with satin stitches. If you're in our online sew club, go to my A to Z, all the little techniques that you have that is in the membership site, and you're going to find all sorts of tricks that you're going to be able to watch to learn. Now I'm coming up to the end. So I got a button on my machine that knots on the dime. Now what that means is I wanted to stop right there, absolutely perfect, so that I knew I could turn the corner if I wanted to, or I could match them, meet them up. But look how gorgeous that is, where you're stitched all the way around it and it's all beautiful. Now I used white thread. What would I normally have used? A purple thread, so it didn't show up. But I did it so you could see what I'm trying to accomplish there. It looks like it's all done by hand, but when you put a press on it, it almost disappears because it's so tiny. So it looks like it's been hand sewn, but it's such a pretty, pretty, pretty stitch. So to show you how I knotted, I think a lot of you have this on your machines, and I don't think you're using that either. I'm sewing along. Okay, now when I get up to this, say I want to stop immediately, I'm slowing down and I want it to match, I'll match it up with this. One more stitch and it's going to stop on a dime. Watch it, it's knotting in the same spot. Now I'm going to reach over and cut my threads. My presser foot will lift up on my own. Now whether your presser foot lifts up or not, or whether you have scissors or not, you may still have a button right up here by your take-up lever that's just a circle. And what that, it's usually above the reverse. Now what that did is it knotted. So if you can see right there, it knots it, and can you see the little bit of thread I got down here? It is knotted, pull the threads to the back. You can cut them off, you're done. But you don't have to reverse, you don't have to watch, you don't have to do anything. So again, it's a button on your machine. It's not, doesn't mean it's an expensive machine. It's got usually right around your reverse, it's got a circle on it. Let's see if I can get that on camera a little bit right here. So what that does is when I push that, when you reverse, you know what happens, it reverses, right? When I go here, it's gonna stop as soon as I say so on my machines. Their machines vary. It's a very important feature in my opinion, is if it stops on a dime. I don't want it to stop one more stitch. I want it to stop on a dime. So, stop. The next one's your needle up, needle down, my cutter, my presser foot lifter up and down, and here's my automatic threading. If you've never seen that, just let me show you. So you thread your machine just like you normally do. So I unthreaded the needle just to show you, and then all I do is push this button and the machine will go and thread that needle for you. There's cool things out here. If you aren't using that feature, you get that book out and figure out how, or come on in and we'll be glad to show you. So lots of cool things on machines. These features that I just showed you as far as the needle up, needle down, and the cutter are on $400 or $500 sewing machines. Make sure you get quality, but use what you have. Hope to see you again. Thanks.